Welcome to Bible in a Year with Scott Purcell. I'm so glad you're joining me. This is a daily reading of portions of the Bible, following a plan that will include the entire Bible in a year. And now, let's open the book and begin our readings. This is the reading for day 115. If your reading is aligned with the calendar year in a non-leap year, this is for April 25th, or in a leap year for April 24th. The Old Testament reading is from Joshua 8 and Joshua 9 from verse 1 through 15. Joshua 8. Then Yahweh said to Joshua, "Do not fear or be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you and go up immediately to Ai. Look, I am giving into your hand the king of Ai, his city, and his land. You will do to Ai and its king that which you did to Jericho and its king. You may take only its spoils and livestock as booty for yourself. Set for yourself an ambush against the city from behind it." So Joshua and all the fighting men went up immediately to Ai. Joshua chose 30,000 of the best fighting men and sent them by night. And he commanded them, saying, "Look, you are to lay an ambush against the city from behind. Do not go very far from the city, and be ready. Then I and all the people who are with me will approach the city. And when they go out to meet us as before, we will flee from them. They will come out after us until we draw them away from the city, because they will think they are fleeing from us as before. So we will flee from them. Then you will rise up from the ambush and take possession of the city, for Yahweh your God will give it into your hand. And when you capture the city, you will set it on fire as Yahweh commanded. Look, I have commanded you." So Joshua sent them out, and they went to the place of the ambush, and they sat between Bethel and Ai, to the west of Ai. But Joshua spent the night with the people. Joshua rose early in the morning and mustered the people, and he went up with the elders of Israel before the people of Ai. All the fighting men who were with him went up and drew near before the city and camped north of Ai. There was a valley between him and Ai. And he took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai to the west of the city. So they stationed the forces. All the army was north of the city, while the rear guard was west. But Joshua went that night to the middle of the valley. When the king of Ai saw this, the men of the city hurried and rose early and went out to meet Israel for battle, he and all his army, to the meeting place before the Arabah. He did not know that there was an ambush for him behind the city. Then Joshua and all Israel acted like they were beaten before them, and they fled in the direction of the wilderness. All of the people who were in the city were called to pursue after them. As they pursued after Joshua, they were drawn away from the city. Not a man remained in Ai or Bethel who had not gone out after Israel. They left the city open and pursued after Israel. And Yahweh said to Joshua, "Stretch out the sword that is in your hand to Ai, because I will give it into your hand." And Joshua stretched out the sword that was in his hand to the city. The moment he stretched out his hand, those in the ambush stood up quickly from their place and ran. And they went into the city and captured it, quickly setting the city ablaze with fire. Then the men of Ai looked behind them, and they saw smoke from the city rising to the sky. They had no power to flee this way or that, and the people fleeing the wilderness turned around to their pursuers. And Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had captured the city, and that the smoke of the city was rising. They returned and struck down the men of Ai. Then the others from the city came out to meet them, and they found themselves surrounded by Israel, some on one side and others on the other side. And they struck them down until no survivor or fugitive was left. But they captured the king of Ai alive, and they brought him to Joshua. When Israel finished slaughtering all the inhabitants of Ai in the open field, in the wilderness where they pursued them, and when all of them had fallen by the edge of the sword until they all had perished, all Israel returned to Ai and attacked it with the edge of the sword. All the people that fell on that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the inhabitants of Ai. For Joshua did not draw back his hand that was stretched out with the sword until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city Israel took as booty for themselves, according to the word of Yahweh that Joshua commanded. So Joshua burned Ai and made it an everlasting heap of rubbish, a desolate place until this day. The king of Ai he hanged on a tree until the time of evening, and as the sun went down, Joshua commanded them, and they brought down his dead body from the tree. Then they threw it at the entrance of the gate of the city, and they raised over it a great heap of stones that remains to this day. Then Joshua built an altar on Mount Ebal for Yahweh, the God of Israel, as Moses, Yahweh's servant, commanded the Israelites, as it is written in the scroll of the law of Moses, an altar of unhewn stones on which no one has wielded an iron implement. And they offered burnt offerings on it, and sacrificed fellowship offerings. And there Joshua wrote on the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he had written in the presence of the Israelites. Then all Israel, foreigners as well as native, with the elders, officials, and judges, stood on either side of the ark before the priest and the Levites, who carried the ark of the covenant of Yahweh. Half of them stood in front of Mount Gerizim, and the other half in front of Mount Ebal, as Moses, Yahweh's servant, had commanded before, to bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessings and the curses, according to all that was written in the scroll of the law. There was not a word from all that Moses commanded that Joshua did not read before the assembly of all Israel, and the women, the little children, and the traveling foreigners among them. Joshua 9. Now when all the kings who were beyond the Jordan in the hill country, and in the Shephelah, and on all the coast of the great sea toward Lebanon, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites heard of this, they gathered themselves together to fight with one accord against Joshua and Israel. But the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua did to Jericho and Ai, and they acted on their part with cunning. They went and prepared provisions, and took worn-out sacks for their donkeys, and old wineskins that were torn and mended. The sandals on their feet were patched and old. Their clothes were old, and their food was dry and crumbled. And they went to Joshua at the camp at Gilgal, and said to him and to the men of Israel, "We have come from a far land, so then make a covenant with us." And the men of Israel said to the Hivites, "Perhaps you are living among us. How can we make a covenant with you?" They said to Joshua, "We are your servants." And Joshua said to them, "Who are you, and from where do you come?" And they said to him, "Your servants have come from a very far land because of the name of Yahweh your God. We have heard of his reputation, of all that he did in Egypt, and of all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon, king of Heshbon, and to Og, king of Bashan, who was in Ashtaroth. So our elders said to us and all the inhabitants of our land, Take in your hand provisions for the journey, and go to meet them, and say to them, We are your servants. So then, make a covenant with us. This is our bread, It was hot when we took it from our houses as provisions on the day we set out to come to you. But now look, it is dry and crumbled. These are the wineskins that we filled new, but look, they have burst. And these are our clothes and sandals that have worn out from the very long journey. So the leaders took from their provisions, but they did not ask direction from Yahweh. And Joshua made peace with them, and he made a covenant with them to allow them to live happily, and the leaders of the congregation swore an oath to them. The New Testament reading is from Luke chapter 22, beginning with verse 63, through Luke chapter 23, ending at verse 25. Luke 22:63. And the men who were guarding him began to mock him while they beat him. And after blindfolding him, they repeatedly asked him, saying, "Prophesy, who is the one who struck you?" And they were saying many other things against him, reviling him. And when day came, the council of elders of the people gathered, both chief priests and scribes, and they led him away to their Sanhedrin, saying, "If you are the Christ, tell us." But he said to them, "If I tell you, you will never believe, and if I ask you, you will never answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." So they all said, "Are you then the Son of God?" And he said to them, "You say that I am." And they said, "Why do we have need of further testimony? For we ourselves have heard it from his mouth." Luke 23. And the whole assembly of them rose up and brought him before Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We have found this man misleading our nation, and forbidding us to pay taxes to Caesar, and saying he himself is Christ, a king." And Pilate asked him, saying, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered him and said, "You say so." So Pilate said to the chief priest and the crowds, "I find no basis for an accusation against this man." But they insisted, saying, "He incites the people, teaching throughout the whole of Judea, and beginning from Galilee as far as here." Now, when Pilate heard this, he asked if the man was a Galilean. And when he found out that he was from the jurisdiction of Herod, he sent him over to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem in those days. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was very glad, for he had been wanting to see him for a long time, because he had heard about him and was hoping to see some miracle performed by him. So he questioned him at considerable length, but he answered nothing to him. And the chief priests and scribes were standing there vehemently accusing him. And Herod with his soldiers also treated him with contempt, and after mocking him and dressing him in glistening clothing, he sent him back to Pilate. And both Herod and Pilate became friends with one another on that same day, for they had previously been enemies of one another. So Pilate called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who was misleading the people. And behold, when I examined him before you, I found nothing in this man as basis for the accusation which you are making against him. But neither did Herod, because he sent him back to us. And behold, nothing deserving death has been done by him. Therefore I will punish him and release him." But they all cried out in unison, saying, "Take this man away and release for us Barabbas," who had been thrown in prison because of a certain insurrection that had taken place in the city, and for murder. And Pilate, wanting to release Jesus, addressed them again. But they kept crying out, saying, "Crucify, crucify him." So he said to them a third time, "Why? What wrong has this man done? I found no basis for an accusation deserving death in him. Therefore I will punish him and release him." But they were urgent, demanding with loud cries that he be crucified, and their cries prevailed. And Pilate decided that their demand should be granted, and he released the one who had been thrown into prison because of insurrection and murder, whom they were asking for, but Jesus he handed over to their will. The wisdom literature reading is from Psalm 51, verses 1 through 9. Psalm 51. For the music director, a psalm of David. When Nathan the prophet came to him after he had gone into Bathsheba. Be gracious to me, O God, according to your loyal love. According to your abundant mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and from my sin cleanse me. For I myself know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, only you, I have sinned, and have done this evil in your eyes, so that you are correct when you speak. You are blameless when you judge. Behold, in iniquity I was born, and in sin my mother conceived me. Behold, you delight in truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden parts you make me to know wisdom. Purify me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and all my iniquities blot out. This concludes the reading for day 115. Thank you for listening. These daily readings are made possible by your generous support of the Global Outreach Ministry of Scott Purcell. To partner with us and enable this work and others like it, please visit huttobible.com/give and select Go Pastor Support from the fund list. You can also sign up for ministry updates at scott-purcell.epistle.org/subscribe. Both of those links can be found in the podcast description. Thank you for helping us share God's Word.